Good evening. How is everyone? This is the regular meeting of the Wayne-Westland Community School Board of Education is now brought to order on Monday, February 12th, 2018. On behalf of the Board of Education, I would like to welcome each and every one of you. Your attendance this evening reflects your interest in public education and is greatly appreciated. So at this time, we want to go into 268.18, the Pledge of Allegiance, and we have two students here from Hamilton Elementary School to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Will Addison and Josh Say please come forward? We have two more, but they didn't make it in yet, so you may see some kids ease in.
Guys, flags over there.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, so Mrs. Medell is going to read your bios for you.
Let's start with Addison. Addison is a fourth grade student in Mrs. Gappa's class. Addison's favorite thing about Hamilton is that there are no bullies and that everyone is nice. When Addison is not at school, she plays soccer and makes slime. Her favorite color is orange, and her favorite food is watermelon. Addison and Josh have two cats called Callie and Cody. When Addison grows up, she wants to be an animal biologist. Then we have Josh. Josh is in third grade, student in Mrs. Kozicki's class. Josh's favorite thing about Hamilton is there's 30 minutes of drawing. Wow. And fun stuff to do during the special. When Josh is not at school, he likes to go to his friend Colin's house. His favorite color is white, and his favorite food is chicken. When Josh grows up, he wants to be a famous painter. Excellent.
Dr. Weaver is going to come down and give you both something from the Board of Education, okay?
Addison, this is for you. Josh, this is for you. The recognition and award for coming to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance tonight. Thank you very much. So who did you bring with you? Them?
Them is always good.
Those two.
And what are your parents' names? Michael and Linda? Melinda. Melinda? It's good. Did you bring anybody else? Okay, I gotta ask now, why didn't you want to come? Did you bring anybody else with you?
Uh-oh.
Okay.
Uh-oh, yes, they did.
What about, as you're looking around,
I think that they're thinking because I didn't come with them.
who's here? And who is she? All right. Thanks again, you guys.
So if you can follow Ms. Johnson out, she's going to take a picture of you. And then if you want to take your things, you're more than welcome. You don't have to stay. You're more than welcome to leave, too. We appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Okay. Item number 269.18, roll call of attendance. Mrs. Medell, and just so you know, Mrs. Madison is excused, and Ms. Hines is running late.
Okey dokey. Mr. Cox.
Present.
Mr. Buckaloo.
Present.
Dr. Weaver.
Here.
I am here, and Mrs. Walker.
Present. Okay. We have enough for a quorum, so I need a motion at this time to amend the agenda as follows, to add item number 270.18B, which will be under presentations, the preliminary bond program analysis.
So moved.
Moved by Dr. Weaver,
Support.
supported by Mr. Cox. Any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
I vote yes. Mr. Cox?
Yes.
Mr. Buckaloo?
Yes.
Dr. Weaver?
Yes.
Mrs. Hines is running late. Mrs. Madison is excused, which leaves Mrs. Walker.
Yes.
And that's 5-0.
Okay. All right. Moving on to item number 270.18, recognition and presentations. Dr. Holt?
Thank you, Madam President. At this time, I would like to ask for the recognition of John Glenn High School's National Honor Society, Mr. Ken Bashat from the Westland Goodfellows. Thank you for joining us.
So the National Honor Society, you can line up right behind there.
My name is Ken Beauchamp. On behalf of Heather Hatfield and the Westland Goodfellows, we're all grateful for the efforts of Mackenzie Pearson and the National Honor Society and John Glenn in their 2017 efforts of collecting hundreds of toys to donate to the Westland Goodfellows for the No Child Without a Christmas program. 620 Westland children received help from the Goodfellows, mostly from district families this Christmas. We have a great partnership with the district and are appreciative of the Wayne Memorial Senate Group adopting families on from us and shop directly for those families. In addition, the school board office also adopted families too. And I believe that the Head Start program took one of the larger families and provided a very nice Christmas. We sincerely hope to maintain a good working relationship with the district and its students groups. And thank you very much.
Thank you.
Did you guys want to say anything? You don't have to. Whose birthday is it? Happy birthday. Thank you for coming out on your birthday.
18. 18.
Oh, wow.
You can vote. I can vote. That's exciting. I would like to thank everyone for coming out. I would also like to thank you, and I would like to thank the Westland Goodfellows for giving the students of John Glenn an opportunity to help so many kids this Christmas. It means the world to us. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
All right, so you guys are all set, or? They'll take a picture right outside for you. He has your certificate, he's gonna give it to you, and you're gonna take your picture. Okay, item B, please.
Okay, item B. This is the preliminary bond program analysis. I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Jim Larson-Scheidler to continue this portion.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Holt. We start out and we went through choice work phase 1. We had John Silveri here with us at the last board meeting to go through that process and tell us what the grade configurations that we came up with. We started, well, we didn't start in January. Immediately after we selected those in December, we started going on to phase 2, which is costing out those grade configurations. We've been working since mid-December. Paul Wills from Plant Moran Caressa has been helping the district go through this process, and he's here tonight to take us through a presentation of the work that we've done so far. This is just the start of it. We went through this with Finance Committee, and we will have 2 board work sessions. We'll have one on February 28th, one on March 7th at 6 o'clock, and then we'll have a board meeting on March 12th. So we're going to be seeing this information. Tonight is an overview. We'll get in more detail once we go into the work sessions.
Thank you, Mr. Larson-Schuyler and Madam President. Good evening, board members. What you see on the screens is what you have in your packets this evening, and what we'd like to do is go through that, as Jim mentioned, is kind of take a look at what is the bond scenarios over the last 20 years with the district, taking a look at the current configuration and square footage of the district, and then walking through each of those three options for ChoiceWorks that was presented earlier to the Board of Trustees. So the first slide is really a historical background of the 1998 bond, which was for $108.3 million. So what you have in green is the millage rates over the last 20 years going forward. If you're to extrapolate that $108.3 million, that represents roughly $165 million in today's dollars. So again, from a historical perspective, this is what the district used for the 1998 bond for their capital improvements. In terms of current configurations, so again, the district is a K-4, a 5-6 upper elementary, a 7-8 middle school, and a 9-12 high school. The district currently operates 23 facilities. 11 of those are elementary schools, 2 upper elementary schools, 2 middle schools, 2 high schools, 3 instructional support buildings, which do include Rose Kennedy, Stottlemyre, as well as the CTC program. And then you also have 3 non-instructional support buildings. These would be your buildings and grounds, transportation, and then the Dyer Center, of which we're in this evening. Those 23 facilities represent roughly 2 million square feet of operational space that the district maintains, heats, cools, and insures on a regular basis. Taking a look at those 23 facilities, and as Jim mentioned, we've been working really for the last several months of what are those critical needs that are above and beyond that what's been done with the sinking fund over the last several years. That comes up to about $166.5 million of capital need in the next 10 years. The way it's broken down is there's $47.5 million for elementary schools. The upper middle schools are about $32.4 million. The high schools, including the CTC, are at $68.6 million, and roughly $17.8 million for support facilities. I do want to note that of that 17.8, there is $7 million for bus replacement. So I know in the last several cycles, the districts, because of budgetaries, are looking at replacing those budgets going long term. What it would take, working with PFM, your financial advisor, is a 3 mil increase. That would be a 25-year bond. So in conjunction with the 2.65 mil, puts you at about 5.65 mil, which is pretty much where you're at in the 2014-2015 tax year. So again, this is the current configuration of the district. Out of ChoiceWorks, a K-5, 6-8, 9-12 facility would result in 2 less elementary schools and 1 less middle school. That would take you down to about 20 facilities, of which 9 would be elementary, 3 middle school, 2 comprehensive high schools, again the same 3 instructional, and also 3 non-instructionals. Total square footage is about 1.84 million square feet, which is a reduction of roughly 233,000 square feet on an operational use. You'll see from the anticipated bond programs, it's just over $150 million, which is a savings of $16 million of capital needs from your current configuration. And again, $40 million for the elementaries, $23.1 for the middle schools, $68.6 million again for the 2 high schools, the Career Tech Center, and again the $17.8 million going forward. From a bond standpoint, it's actually 2.5 mil versus the 3 mil. It would also be a 25-year bond, so in conjunction with the current 2.65, puts you at a 5.15 mil, again, very similar to the 2014-15 tax year. Some of the bullets that come out of this, again, redistricting or reconfiguring the district would be effective in the fall of 2019-20. Again, as mentioned, it would be a result of closing 2 elementary schools and 1 middle school. Again, those schools have not been identified, just for public that may be watching or maybe not able to watch the ChoiceWorks presentation earlier. You would have an opportunity to potentially use those buildings, the 2 elementary schools, as swing space, so construction for the existing schools could actually commence fairly quickly going forward. And then also it provides ample timing as you start looking at the high schools and the middle school opportunities going forward. From an operational standpoint, this would be the most effective and efficient relative to realizing operational savings to the district as soon as possible. Next option would be a K-8, 9-12. This would include the construction of 2 new middle schools and renovation of the 4 existing schools. This would result in 11 less elementary schools. As you can see, it would result in 14 total facilities. Again, there'd be 4 middle schools, of which are existing, 2 new, 2 high schools, and then the same 3 instructional and also non-instructional support facilities. From a square footage standpoint, it's about 1.81 million square feet, which is about 264,000 square feet less than you're currently operating. The one major difference you'll notice is the capital program required for that would be about $208.6 million. A large component of that, of roughly $85.5 million, would be for new construction for those 2 middle schools. We did include the demolition of the existing 11 elementary schools. There would be $32.4 million for the 4 middle schools. The high schools, again, remains at $68.8 million, and then $17.8 million for the supports, which also includes that $7 million for buses. You will also notice that the recorded millage rate is significantly higher. It's at 4 mil. It's a 25-year bond, plus the 2.65 puts you at 6.65 total mills, which would be higher than you've been previously, even since 1998 going forward. Some of the results of that, again, is building 2 new middle schools. The challenge you will have is right now you only have 1 site that's approximately 20 acres, so somewhere in the district you'd have to renovate or look at facilities, potentially a 2-story middle school, maybe about a 15-acre site of which you have a couple to choose from. In terms of the K-8, 9, 12s, you'd have to wait for those new middle schools to come online, so there's about a year of planning and roughly 2 to 3 years of construction. So you'd actually have dual operations. So from an efficiency standpoint on operations, this would cost the district more for that 2 to 3 year time period. As I mentioned, 20 acres is approximately what's needed to build a K-8 facility. Right now you have one that's over at Henry Ruff Road, which is roughly 20 acres. Actually, it's more than that, but you require 20 acres of that. And again, as I mentioned, the delayed realization of those operational savings underneath this configuration. The last configuration is still in that K-8, 9, 12 feel. This would actually be more of that neighborhood feel, so it's actually additions of roughly 10,000 square feet to each of those 11 elementary schools. We'd be looking at some large group instructional spaces, gymnasium or cafeteria depending on the facility type itself, but really creating equity across all 11 elementary schools. We do have the demolition costs included in there of the 4 middle schools, but you'd end up with 11 elementary, 2 high schools, and again the same 3 instructional as well as non-instructional support. From a total square footage standpoint, you're actually going down to 1.62 million square feet, which is approximately 450,000 square feet than your current configurations. 164.7 million would be the total capital required, of which 47.5 would be going to, I'll call the existing footprint of the elementaries. There's roughly $27 million of new construction at each of those facilities and sites. The 3.5 would be for the demolition and green spacing of those sites going forward. 68.6 million for the high schools, very similar to the others. And then again, the same 17.8 million for support facilities. This millage rate is a 3 mil, which is a 25-year bond, plus a 2.65, puts you at that 5.65 mil rate, which is similar to the previous 1998 bonds over the time frame. From the configuration standpoint, this does maintain that neighborhood presence throughout the district. It does allow these to become K-8 facilities. Several other districts around the state have a K-8 in that elementary type feel. Again, with the additions that we planned, almost a school within a school, if you will. In terms of the other facilities, again, because of the additions, it's not like you could just do 11 schools all at one time, so there'd be several phasing sequences that we'd want to work in with the district once approved to figure out what's the most efficient way to accomplish that type of work. And then lastly, there would be some additional general operational funds, again, because you are keeping those 4 middle schools open while you're doing those additions. So it's very similar to option 2, where you don't realize as much efficiency of operations in year 1. In terms of other considerations, should the bond pass or not pass, I believe presentation previously with enrollments and utilization, redistricting and reconfiguring would take place in the fall of 2019-20. As mentioned, you do have several options as you look at some of these facilities to create a K-8 STEAM or some other sort of academic building within that program going forward. And then again, the one thing we always leave with districts and administrations is, again, when you take a look at the impact of those facilities, of closed facilities, is it boundaries, is it operational savings, is it financing, is it logistics? There's a whole plethora of information that goes into those diagrams going forward. And then, of course, rental of buildings. You've done a very nice job, I think, of actually being able to find some nonprofits that are able to rent your facility. So again, there's a lot of different options of what to do should some facilities come offline. From a timing standpoint, as Mr. Larson-Schuyler mentioned, tonight's the board meeting. There's a board work session on February 28th. A couple other sessions, March 7th and March 12th. And then in April, board would look at approving the district, ourselves, and your financial advisor to meet with the Department of Treasury. There's a book that needs to be completed depending on which option. The good part is we have all three options priced out from a capital improvement standpoint. We've actually gone through and looked at your enrollment, complete all the utilization forms. Again, just trying to take a look at some of those, what's the ultimate decision of the board going forward. And that May time frame, because the district is going through the qualified process with the state of Michigan, you do get to meet with the Department of Treasury to review the preliminary application. In the June time frame, I just picked the June 25th board meeting. You'd actually adopt a resolution to put the bond proposal or ballot proposal onto the agenda. And then really June through October is an opportunity to really get that information out to the voters within the district going forward, with November 6th being the election date. So with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Larson-Schuyler and President Walker and the board for any other questions.
Thank you.
Thank you. Tonight was an overview. As I said, we'll get into more detail once we go into the board work sessions. If you have any questions or if there's some information you'd like to see leading up to the work session, if you could let us know, that we'd appreciate it.
I have one question. I had a question about the redistricting, because I know when I was in school, like I lived in East Group, and I went to Wayne, and they redistricted Glenn. So is that what's going to happen? They're going to move things around with the lines?
Yeah, depending on the configuration. So I think in all three, what you'll notice, there are 2 comprehensive high schools remaining. So I would not envision the high school boundaries to change. But again, if you went K-5, 6, 8, 9, 12, there'd be some adjustments because you're having 2 less elementary schools, 1 less middle school. If, let's say, choice works option 2, where you have 6 new middle schools, then obviously a lot of that would change from that K standpoint. So I think as the PowerPoint indicates, I think kind of regardless of what option, because of the declining enrollment and where you all ultimately would be in 5 years, that's inevitable regardless if the bond passes or not. So I do also want to thank Tony Spisick and the rest of the administration team for their time to really help put this presentation together. It's not just us, but it's a collective team effort of the Finance Committee and the administration, et cetera. So we have started looking at that polygon of, where could you potentially put a new school here or there. But again, we're really letting the board kind of take option A, B, and C kind of holistically, and then start to address that as you progress through that decision process.
Any other questions?
I just have one more question. Now, the property you said, like on Henry Ruff in Inkster, is that section that divides it by like Palmer?
Yeah, it's at the end of Palmer and Henry Ruff.
Oh, okay.
Vacant property there.
That's all big, yep.
Mr. Cox, you had a question?
Yes, thanks. Jim, ultimately, we want to achieve a certain density in our classroom utilization percentages, and some of these square footages, there's such a great range in them. I'd be interested in knowing what kind of density percentages we'd be realizing from these different plans.
But at a minimum, we're going to go to 85% capacity at the buildings. That's the minimum that is required in the application to the state in order to get a qualified bond.
Regardless whether the square footages fluctuate by 400,000 square feet?
That'd be at 85% if you're going to use bond money for the construction.
Any other questions?
I don't have a question, but I have a comment. Each of these plans seems to have its pluses and its minuses, and there are costs attached to each, but not necessarily a true reflection of the cost to the district over the long term. Sometimes spending a little less now might mean a more expensive option down the road, and the opposite is also true. So a lot of variables here, except for one thing, and you mentioned that, sir, a couple of minutes ago. the one thing that we can count on is declining enrollment. That's not just a fact today, that's a trend for the future. And so whatever we do, we need to come up with a configuration that leaves us with the option of further restricting our footprint as we go forward. There's no reason why we can't afford and offer a first-class education to all of our students, and at the same time reflect the fact that we have fewer students than we used to have. And that seems to be the crux of the problem that the community has to come to grips with when they set about giving us instructions as to where we should go.
If I could actually add to that, so the good thing about the way the bonds are structured is you'd actually do it in a series of bonds. So we know your two high schools are highly utilized. We would envision that first series of dollars being allocated to, let's say, those programs, because that's the greatest impact for all K-12. And then as you start to look at Series 2 or Series 3, you're doing a gut check before you issue those bonds. We're working with very large districts, Livonia Schools on their 195, Warren County 141 million. Before every series, they work collectively as a board and as administration to make sure there's some stop gaps to say, are we finally leveled off? Are we actually decreasing, increasing? And that's that opportunity, to your point, to make sure you're not putting bond dollars in programs or buildings that could potentially be closed 10, 15 years down the road. So,
Anyone else?
I guess one more thing, and probably we'll be covering this in future choice work sessions, but the transportation costs associated with some of these, going down in 11 elementary schools means everyone's going to have to be bused to one of 6 places, so.
Yeah, well, technically they are right now, because we have the 11 elementaries, but if we're going to, and as Trustee Bucklew said, there are pluses and minuses. If you're looking at the middle school model, you're busing from 4 or 6 locations?
6 locations.
And, the elementaries, if you're keeping the 11, you're keeping the neighborhood schools. And that would be basically the same busing as is now. So, we'll have to cost that out too. That'll be part of the decision-making and some of the process that we'll go through in the workshops.
Okay.
And I just wanted to mention, I'm very bad at this, but I did want to mention that we had Tony Spizak on the committee, Gino Montaigne, John Albrecht, and Seth Wenzel. They'll be here next time. Of course, John's here now, but all 4 will be here next time to answer questions and go through this also. So I wanted to thank them.
If there's no other questions, thank you so much
all
for
right,
your
thank
time.
you very much.
So before we go to the next agenda item, I did mention this at the beginning, that we do have the blue slips for those who want to make comments. And the reason that we need these is so that we can be able to get back in touch with you with a timely manner with your questions, and we'll have on record so that we know that everyone's questions did get answered. They're at the front when you first came in where the agenda books are. So moving on to item number 271.18, citizen comments, and this is on agenda items only. Mr. Nims, I do have yours, but it's for the later on in the agenda. Okay, seeing none, moving on to item number 272.18, consent agenda. At this time, I'll take a motion.
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. Madell.
Support.
Supported by Dr. Weaver. Any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Cox?
Yes.
Mr. Buckaloo?
Yes.
Dr. Weaver?
Yes.
Ms. Hines, yes. Ms. Walker?
Yes.
Ms. Madell?
Yes. 6-0.
6-0.
Mrs. Madison is excused today. Moving on to item number 273.18, review and approval of employee relations. Ms. Simmons.
Okay, thank you. The first item I would like to bring to your attention is the director
Jill,
of
you need to move the mic.
Sorry, that would work.
Otherwise, it won't pick up.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
We
Okay.
can hear you,
Just
but
to make sure you
take
talk
the tape.
into it.
Okay. The first item is the Director of Employee Relations. I present you for approval Victoria Riley. Victoria comes to us with a bachelor's degree in Business Management and Human Resources from Eastern Michigan University. For the past 8 years, she has served as the Human Resources Manager for Union Sorters of America. And Victoria is with us this evening.
Okay. At this time, I'll take a motion.
So moved.
Moved by Dr. Weaver,
Support.
supported by Mr. Cox. Any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Dr. Weaver?
Yes.
Ms. Hines? Yes. Ms. Madell?
Yes.
Mr. Cox?
Yes.
Mr. Buckaloo?
Yes.
Ms. Walker?
Yes.
Does the record show 6-0?
Motion carries. Congratulations, Ms. Riley. If you like, you can come to the mic, and if you want to say a few words, it's up to you. No pressure.
Just want to say I look forward to working with everyone and getting started. So, probably see you guys sometime soon. And hopefully, it's on good terms.
Thank you. Welcome to the Wayne-Westland family.
Welcome, welcome.
Item B, please.
The second item I bring for approval is the assistant principal of Marshall Upper Elementary School, Mr. Bradley Smith, who is also with us this evening. Bradley currently serves as a fourth grade teacher at David Hicks Elementary School and possesses a master's in educational leadership and K-12 administration from Eastern Michigan University.
Okay. At this time, I'll take a motion.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Cox, supported by Ms. Hines. Any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Ms. Hines, yes. Ms. Madell?
Yes.
Mr. Cox?
Yes.
Mr. Buckaloo?
Yes.
Dr. Weaver?
Yes.
Ms. Walker?
Yes.
Does the record show 6-0?
Motion carries. Congratulations, Mr. Smith, on your new assignment. If you want to say anything, please. Looks like you have a lot of support with you as well. So you can introduce them too.
I just wanted to say it's an honor to be given this opportunity to serve as the assistant principal at Marshall Upper Elementary. Thank you all so very much, and I'm excited to get started. Thank you.
Welcome.
Welcome. Congratulations.
Thank you all for coming to support him.
That's good there.
Speaks volumes.
C, please.
All right. The next item is Assistant Superintendent of Culture, Climate, and Social Emotional Learning. This is Dr. Andre Townsell. Dr. Andre Townsell currently serves as the principal at Southbridge Public Schools in Massachusetts. He possesses a doctorate in educational leadership and policy studies from Howard University in Washington, D.C. He was not able to be with us this evening. I present him for your approval.
Okay. At this time, I take a motion.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Cox,
Support.
supported by Ms. Hines. Any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Buckaloo?
Yes.
Ms. Hines, yes. Ms. Madell?
Yes.
Mr. Cox?
Yes.
Ms. Walker?
Yes.
Let the record show 6-0.
Thank you. Motion carries, and I'm sure that Dr. Townsell will do a great job here in the district, and we welcome him to the Wayne-Westland family.
Madam President, not that it matters, but I don't think my name was called.
Hey, Dr. Weaver?
Yes.
Thank you.
It does matter. It does matter. It matters. I'm sorry, we all are probably still on a snow day.
Yes.
All right. Again, we welcome him to the Wayne-Westland family. So moving on to item number 274.18, review and approval, business services and finance items. Mr. Larson Schuyler.
Thank you, Madam President. I'm recommending the disposal of the 6 building and ground vehicles and the 1 transportation utility vehicle. These vehicles were replaced earlier in the year, and the 7 vehicles will be auctioned to the highest bidder through Biddergy.
That's it?
Do you want more?
No. At this time, I'll take a motion.
Move approval.
Moved by Dr. Weaver, supported by Ms. Hines. Any discussion? Roll call vote.
Dr. Weaver?
Yes.
Ms. Madell?
Yes.
Mr. Cox?
Yes.
Mr. Buckaloo?
Yes.
Ms. Hines? Yes. Ms. Walker?
Yes.
Let the record show 6-0.
Motion carries. Item B, please.
Okay, thank you again, Madam President. Recommending the purchase of 2 expiring leases. These are leases that we've had for the past 2 years. The buses are available to the district to purchase at their remaining cost of $152,036. The original cost of the buses at the start of the lease was $210,487. The cost of these buses will be included in a resolution with 60 days within 60 days of the actual purchase to include in a future bond issue.
Okay, thank you. This time I'll take a motion.
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. Madell,
Second?
supported by Mr. Buckaloo. Any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Ms. Madell?
Yes.
Mr. Cox?
Yes?
Mr. Buckaloo?
Yes.
Dr. Weaver?
Yes.
Ms. Hines? Yes. And Ms. Walker?
Yes.
Let the record show 6-0.
Thank you. Motion carries. Item C, please.
Okay, thank you again, Madam President. I'm recommending the purchase of network infrastructure through E-rate. This is purchase of network switches, wireless access points, and tech infrastructure with a total cost of approximately $1 million. District will pay $195,000, which will be matched with 80% funding from E-rate. The items would be purchased will be able to be relocated from their installed location to other buildings throughout the district, should there come an occasion for that.
All right, thank you. At this time, I'll take a motion.
So moved.
Moved by Dr. Weaver, supported by Mrs. Madell. Any discussion? I just want to say that that's important to know that you can be able to move those from building to building, so that's a good thing there.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Cox?
Yes?
Mr. Buckaloo?
Yes.
Dr. Weaver?
Yes.
Ms. Hines? Yes. Ms. Madell?
Yes.
Ms. Walker?
Yes.
Let the record show 6-0.
Thank you. Motion carries. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Moving on to item number 275.18, the resolution to oppose Senate Bills 584, 586, and 366. Dr. Holt?
Thank you, Madam President. So in your packet, you have the opposition to Senate Bills 584 to 586 and 366 for Board of Education resolution. Many of our neighboring districts have taken this on as a resolution. Mainly this has to do with gun violence and ensuring that we have the proper handling of weapons, particularly not handling weapons when we're on our campuses. So that's what we're proposing.
Okay, just a quick question for when we, after we vote, does it have to be read into, does it need to be read?
My
into the
understanding
record?
is no, but if
Okay.
we would like to read it, we can. I can
No.
read the whole thing.
No, the secretary, normally, like, if there's a resolution that has to be read, just want to make sure, no.
Yeah, no,
Okay.
my understanding is no. That's what
Okay,
we kind of
well,
went round and
that's the
round to make
understanding that we're
sure.
going to go with. Thank you.
Okay.
So, at this time, I'll take a motion.
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. Madell,
Support.
supported by Ms. Hines. Any discussion?
Yes, Madam President, I'd
Okay,
like to
Mr.
make a statement. I am going to be voting in favor of this, but I just want to make a point that I do not agree with every premise that is listed in every paragraph. I think the heart of this matter is whether or not decisions of this nature should be made by local school districts or whether they should be made by state. And I think the school district should make these decisions, and that's why I'm supporting it, but not because I agree with every premise that's outlined in this agreement.
Okay. Any other discussion? Okay. Roll call vote, please.
Ms. Madell?
Yes.
Mr. Cox?
Yes.
Mr. Buckaloo?
Yes.
Dr. Weaver?
Yes.
Ms. Hines? Yes. Ms. Walker?
Yes.
Let the record show 6-0.
Thank you. Motion carries. We just need to have you sign that at the end. Moving on to item number 276.18, the Head Start Monthly Report. Mrs. Madell.
As required by federal law, we all received a copy of the Head Start Monthly Report, and it's quite lengthy because I think it takes in a couple of months for January and February in your board packet. I need a motion to accept this report.
Okay. So at this time, we'll take a motion to accept the Head Start Monthly Report.
Support. So moved.
Moved by Mr. Cox. Or any support, Mrs. Madell?
I'll support.
Supported by Mrs. Madell. Any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Ms. Madell?
Yes.
Mr. Cox?
Yes.
Mr. Buckaloo?
Yes.
Dr. Weaver?
Yes.
Ms. Hines? Yes. Ms. Walker?
Yes.
Let the record show 6-0.
Thank you. Motion carries. At this time, item number 277.18, Board of Education Committee reports, and we only have one this month, the Finance Committee. Mr. Cox.
Thank you, Madam President. I kind of feel like I'm running down the driveway with my garbage cans after the garbage truck already went by, because all of the items that we discussed in our finance meeting have already been on the agenda and voted upon. There was a meeting on the 1st. It began at 2:02 p.m. and included members of the Finance Committee, Treasurer Buckaloo, Trustee Fred Weaver, and myself. All members were present. Dr. Holt was in attendance, as was Mr. Jim Larson-Scheidler, Tony Spizak, Seth Wenzel, Jenny Johnson, Gina Montaigne, Kimberly Doman, Sue Ross, and Peggy Powers, and also Mr. Wills from Plant Moran Cressa. And on our agenda was an update on the purchase of the 2 buses, which we currently lease. The lease is going to be expiring next month. As Mr. Larson-Scheidler said earlier this evening, we plan on purchasing them in the next 60 days and then converting that to the bond issue after that. There was also a notice by Dr. Holt about the project that was underway in the business department. The purpose of this was to create a more usable space for the people who work collaboratively with one another typically, and also to provide them some conferencing capabilities. I don't know where we're at on the actual construction project.
It's scheduled to be done, I believe, the end of next week when we have break, February 23rd.
Okay, good luck with that. Also, we discussed the disposal of surplus vehicles, a couple of whom are only vehicles legally. We also, when we received the presentation, and Paul Wills said this evening when he began talking that the bond issue in 1998, when adjusted for inflation, would generate about $164 million bond issue. And that's the same neighborhood that we're looking at right now, one way or the other based upon the configurations. And considering it's 20 years ago, it looks to be a pretty conservative the way it's all been assembled so far. So, and I was anxious to see that also. I mentioned at the last meeting, so I was happy to see that. And of course, we have more choice work coming up the 28th of February and the 7th of March to continue that work. And that's, I think the meeting was adjourned at 2:51, and that was the extent of what we discussed.
Thank you, Mr. Cox. Moving on to item number 278.18, Superintendent Report. Dr. Holt?
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Madam President. I want to thank you tonight as a board for your faith in our path forward within the best interest of our students, staff, and families. I know that with the organizational chart and the change process work, a lot of it is unfamiliar to many, but the work is moving forward. We're starting to see some very, very small results, and we have a long way to go, but we're on the right path. Our partnership agreement was signed last week, and I have to take a moment to really thank everyone who was involved in that. This was a true labor of love, taking something that was a very challenging situation for us, not only as a district, but as a community, to face the realization that, we've come to this point, and to see the group of people that came together from MDE, that would be Dr. Vanessa Kiesler, Brian Whiston, our liaison, Rob Harvey, from Wayne-Risa, Lynn Moore, and Randy Liepa. I cannot thank enough. He even came here to speak with our community. The staff and principal and faculty, everyone, and parents, students at Hoover Elementary who really took this effort and said, hey, you know what, we can definitely make some improvements, and we can really think about the different factors of this that can impact our entire district. Very, very well done. John Bessick, the principal there, did a phenomenal job really helping to move the community and the staff through that process. I have to really thank everyone involved. There were several meetings that started out with a social emotional committee that folks are like, well, what is this all about? What are we doing? Why are we doing this? And it really kind of dovetailed nicely. And taking all of the plans that we have, which we still have work to do, but taking our strategic plan, taking our district improvement plan as a Board of Education, really learning about, okay, well, how do we put all these together? And with the assistance really primarily of Mrs. Rebecca Peck and Mrs. Jenna Mullins, coming up with a document that I think we are very proud of here in Wayne-Westland to get into this agreement with MDE and with Wayne-Risa. So the agreement is now officially signed. It will be posted on the website for any and everyone to see. And I think there were over 200 people, I believe, at some point that were involved, and touched it in some way, even if just to make a few edits. So that's a monumentous effort in the 90 days that we had to pull that together. We have, as part of the partnership agreement, we did do a climate and culture survey with Hewlings and Associates, the results of which are being shared starting this week. We have had the results for about 2 or 3 weeks now, and we were trying to figure out what is the best way to share this with our community. So the results are being shared this week with the Leadership Council on Wednesday, and there's also a staff meeting right afterwards for anyone to come. And the reason it was on Wednesday was because he was already coming to Leadership Council, and to put 1 hour right behind the other was most cost efficient, and some people can come. There will be a second opportunity for staff and parents to come, which will not be on a Wednesday. So we'll make sure that we hit another day of the week for others to be able to hear directly from Healings and Associates what our areas of greatest challenge are in the midst of what we're looking at within climate and culture. It will come to the board. Healings and Associates will come and present to the board on March 12th, that information, and it will be alongside the preliminary results of our plan, including the additions to the strategic plan from the partnership agreement. So we have some work coming up with that. One of the things that did come up was that we as a district need to do a better job of spreading the good news of what's happening in Wayne-Westland. And that's something I think everyone can get behind, that we know what our challenges are, but we have to do a much better job of saying what are the great things that are happening with our kids, with our staff, with our community. I mean, how many people know we had a teacher that just spoke in Finland, which is, where everyone's looking to see where what we should do with education, and one of our teachers was just speaking in that great country. I want to speak also to and thank all of our staff and students and families at our buildings. Our principals this year have entered into a series of professional developments that in the morning time, typically we had one Thursday a month that the principals were coming together for a principals meeting. It was usually the elementary principals on Thursday morning once a month. We took that time and expanded it since it was already something that was being used for this purpose. And we understand that when we have things like that, it's going to cause a bit of a strain at the campus level. And so I want to thank our teachers that are really moving forward with handling discipline in various ways and learning new strategies while our administrators learn new strategies. When leaders learn, then they can spread that learning into their buildings, and it spreads throughout the community. So we decided this year to really hone in our efforts with our principals, particularly in the area of the 5D framework. And so I want to make it very clear that we as a district are still on the same path. We adopted the 5D framework as part of our evaluation measure. It has 5 areas that we focus on. Those are the exact same 5 areas that we are looking at with the restructuring, and it is the exact same areas that we're looking at with our principal training. This year, our principals are focusing on 2 main areas, and that is on learning climate and culture through restorative practices, which was something they had been asking for, and so we just had our first session on that particular topic last Thursday. And they've also been focused on assessing cognitive rigor within the 5D framework using Hess's cognitive rigor matrix, which is a combination of Webb's depth of knowledge and Bloom's taxonomy to get our kids thinking at higher levels. If we can look at the instruction that's happening in the classroom and be able to say, okay, are we teaching at this level, which is usually an entry level like a DOK1, or are we getting to that really high cognitive processing level of DOK4? And where are we within the continuum? Where are we spending the majority of our time? And being able to have those kind of stimulating conversations. And I must say that the conversations that are being had by our administrators are literally second to none, because it is through those conversations and that learning that we're starting to process what we can do differently. So I have to thank our Assistant Superintendent, Jen Curry, and our Assistant Superintendent, Rebecca Peck, along with Julie Rutherford and Jenna Mullins and Kate Brawl, who have really been spearheading those efforts with our administrators. The next thing I want to talk about very briefly is that as part of this spreading good news, we in Wayne-Westland are expanding our presence in social media. And while we are taking on this labor of love, which I must say it was a bit of a challenge. They had to talk me into it a little bit because getting on social media is not my forte. But I want to say to our community and to each and every one of us that our goal here in Wayne-Westland is to create a social media that is a model for our students. The vast majority of our problems that are occurring in our buildings stem from inappropriate use by our children of social media. We have to be the model. We have to show them what it is that social media can do and how not to use it. And so if we don't provide that model, where will they get it from? And that was kind of the link that kind of made me go, all right, I'm willing to take that leap with our community. That being said, and I wrote here, one of the challenges that I have heard consistently expressed across the board within any area was communication. Internal, external, getting out in the community, even within our organization, it was communication. And knowing that the vast majority of our building problems stem from our students not being able to use social media, we want to get in front of it. This is one of our greatest social issues, which leads to climate and culture challenges, since our students may not be ready or have models for appropriate use. I want to take a moment to address this and let you know what we are doing to address this need for internal and external communication. And I'm also going to put a challenge out to our community and everyone in this room and everyone that uses social media as we embark upon tackling this together. Internally, we now have the weekly communique where staff and faculty can have any questions answered. They just have to email them in, and then we answer them publicly so that everyone has the answer. Because if one person has a question about something, whether it's regarding the bus leases or whether it's regarding what's happening with discipline and what we're moving for, whether it's regarding NGSS, science, professional development, if one person has the question, then chances are somebody else does as well. And so we want to make sure we communicate that. So the purpose of the communique is to create frequent two-way communication to share large and small-scale information that is necessary for the functioning of our organization. We also have emails to address things directly with one person or a small group. And we also, as a district, operate within many shared Google Drives and documents to collaborate. And we also have the use of our staff portal, which we're looking at how efficient is that? Is there too much or is there too little? So we're looking at how to make that most effective for all of our employees. Moving forward, we anticipate having several action-oriented committees to help us address some of our needs in systems, policies, and procedures to best meet the needs of our staff, students, and faculty. Externally, we have our website. We have a Wayne-Westland Facebook page, which is managed by Jenny Johnson and her team. We have a Twitter account for Wayne-Westland, and we have an Instagram. And right now, we are also looking at creating a district communications team under the guidance of Senior Executive Director Jill Simmons and Jenny Johnson, which would have community members to help us message appropriately. We are entering a time when a lot of information is wanted immediately, but we're in processes that take time. And so when people want information immediately and the process takes time, we have to communicate little bits and pieces out regularly to satisfy that need, but not overcommit to where we don't have the opportunity to make decisions. I personally have also started a Facebook page called Superintendent Hope. Please follow me on Facebook. And I have an Instagram, and we're working on Twitter. Haven't gotten that far yet. Here's the deal. Many districts don't want to put themselves out. Many superintendents will not do Facebook or Twitter because of the challenges that arrive from people using this forum for more than it is intended. Our goal here in Wayne-Westland is to share information, and as I've been quoted as saying, it's a saying I received from someone on a trip I went on, we want to spread good news like it's bad news. We want to spread the good news of Wayne-Westland. In order to do this most effectively, we do need to have some parameters set so that we can truly model for our students the appropriate use of social media. We will not, as a team here or as a community, always agree on anything, whether it be snow days or curriculum. We will not always agree. But we should be able to interact in such a way that it is a model for our students of what we expect from them. How do we disagree amicably? How do we communicate respectfully, even though on a public forum? We are working on some ideas moving forward, but at this point I would ask that if you are on social media with us, work with us to be that model for our kids. Work to be something that we can show our kids that, hey, when you have a problem with something and you still want to use social media, this is how you do it, versus however you did it to end up to have the conversation that you're having. We use a simple rule. I should say I use a simple rule, and we're using it in cabinet, is that positivity goes out publicly. Questions or concern come to us in private message so that your issue can actually be dealt with. So we're asking that we do the same. Positivity, let's put it out there. But if you have questions or concerns or you just don't quite understand something, go ahead and ask us in a private message, and then we can respond publicly to say, hey, this question came up, this was the response. We are working very hard to spread the good news of Wayne-Westland, knowing that we also have challenges that need to be addressed. For everyone's information, we do have school tomorrow. I'll say it again. We do have school tomorrow on Tuesday. There are no more snow days planned. But I do want to take a moment to thank our crews for all of the work they did. Our crews here in the school district worked all weekend long. Literally, I was here and round the clock. Our crews in Westland, Romulus, Canton, Inkster, and Wayne did amazing work, and I just want to say thank you. You are appreciated, and I hope everyone has a great night, and we'll see you in the morning.
Thank you, Dr. Holt. Moving on to item number 279.18, citizen comments, non-agenda items. I have one blue sheet here, and Ms. Hines will read that off, and I don't know if there's anyone else out of that.
So we have a David Nim.
You go to the podium to ask your question. So, sir, I know this is my first time probably seeing you here. We have a 3-minute limit, and if you can state your name again and where you live, so for the record.
Okay. I'm David Nims. I am a current Westland resident. We've been in Westland since August of 1983. I'm a retired quality engineer from Ford Motor Company. My wife, Kara, is a retired special education hearing impaired teacher. And I'm here for information for myself mostly. I recognize the board has had some very difficult decisions to make. I think they've done a lot of their homework and done great analysis. I don't envy your job. And wanted to let you know that both my wife and I have always supported any of the millages and bonds and everything because we firmly believe that the education of our children is very important. And I'm here tonight to get more information, what's going on in the bonds, et cetera. And my specific concern is what it might mean for the adult continuing education, specifically the Dyer Pool. So anything I could learn is good. That's about all I've got.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay. And if you could state your name, if you don't mind, filling out one of those sheets so we can get back to you, okay?
I don't intend to be a rule breaker every time, but I'm a rebel tonight, didn't fill out the sheet.
Okay.
My name is Mike McDermott. I live at 652 4th Street here in Westland. A couple of comments here and then a question as well. I am very pleased to see the adoption of the opposition to Senate Bills 584 and 586, keeping our schools as gun-free zones. I think that's very important. I don't think we need to turn our school grounds into the wild, wild west, so I'm very pleased to see the district and the board adopt that tonight. I was also wondering if the district was going to take a position on Senate Bill 574, which is to allow charter schools to receive public school dollars. I am strongly opposed to that. I believe that for-profit, profiteering charter schools should receive no public school dollars. I believe that any money from a public school millage should strictly stay within the district. If it's a county millage, like we saw with Wayne-Risa, that should also go only to public school districts as well. And I was wondering if the district was going to take a public stance on Senate Bill 574, which would unfortunately allow charter schools to receive public school dollars. And then my last comment is that the Michigan School Finance Research Collaborative recently came out with a study that said we are underfunding our schools here in Michigan. Here in Wayne-Westland, we're roughly at about $7,600 per pupil, and the study said that we need to be at about $9,500 per pupil. And I just wanted to make a comment that it is unfortunate that we are robbing resources from our students, our teachers, our parents, our administrators in the classrooms by almost $2,000 per pupil. And I hope that when everybody goes this, and it is an election year, when you go to the ballot box as a parent, as an educator, as a concerned resident, that you go to the ballot box with education, public schools, and kids on your mind, and you take this study that says we're underfunding our schools by almost $2,000 per child. You take it to heart and you take it with you when you're voting. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Okay. Just a reminder that the blue sheets that we'll get back to you. What do I have on there? 20
Within 1 week.
Within 1 week.
We'll get back to them and have the response back to us.
So someone will answer your question for you, sir. Okay, thank you. So moving on to item number 280.18, review and recommendations, Board of Education. Dr. Weaver.
Thank you, Madam President. I am glad that our board is taking a position on 584 through 586. The Second Amendment reads that in order to maintain a well-regulated militia, I think that it is the public right to bear arms. I, too, am a gun owner. But the problem is that there's not a whole lot of common sense anymore. This bill would allow or not allow people to carry in airports for the safety of the public, but would allow people to come inside our school walls with guns, with schools filled with innocent children. I'm violently opposed to this. I'm glad we passed the amendment tonight, and I hope that we can beat the gun lobby in this. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Weaver. Mr. Buccalow?
Thank you. Well, we've got a couple of really major things in front of us as a school district. One of them is improving student learning. There's no question about that. But almost equally as important is what we do with our physical structures. And we're at a point now where we're going to make some decisions. I hope that the community gets involved and gives us the help that we need in making the right decision. Again, you can see that there are a variety of options available to us. There may not be a really good one, there may not be a really bad one, but I think somewhere along the line we're going to find a better one. So I hope that we move in that direction. I had the opportunity with Dr. Weaver, Mrs. Walker, and with Dr. Holt to attend the Champions Banquet the other night. As always, it was an opportunity to listen to a variety of inspiring stories from our students. And I couldn't help but think at the time and think today what tremendous potential our young people have, and that we need to explore new ways of unleashing that potential so that they have the opportunity to achieve all that they're capable of. If you haven't had an opportunity to get to a Champions Program banquet and hear some of the stories of young people, please find a way to get there. It was truly amazing. Tomorrow, the State Board of Education is going to be at Wayne-Westland, and there'll be a meet and greet starting at 8:30, and then at 9:30, there's going to be a public State Board of Education meeting, one that, if I can get up in time, I hope to attend. It's an ungodly 8:30 call. One of the topics is going to be the adequacy study. And so we'll know more about that after tomorrow morning's meeting. I want to thank Ms. Michaels for bringing Addison and Josh from Hamilton and getting us started with the pledge this evening. And one final comment. I've had it up to my eyebrows and above with this stupid winter. I'm ready for spring. I'm going to burn my snow shovel. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Buccalow. Mr. Cox?
Well, I just want to restate what I said during the vote with respect to our opposition to Senate bills. I'm not going to argue the Second Amendment any more than I'm going to argue any of the other amendments to the Constitution, all of which I support. But in this particular proposal, what I was looking at is it should be up to this district to decide what its policies are going to be in our buildings, not just for our students and staff, but for anybody that comes into our buildings. And I'll continue to fight on that side of it, so. Earlier this evening, when we were receiving our report from Paul Wills on the bond analysis program, he mentioned early that $108 million was the 1998 bond, and and I was here then. And one of the things that we pledged to the community at that time was that those funds were earmarked for certain things, and they were going to be used only for those things, and there was going to be a good stewardship of those funds and that complete bond program. And it's my opinion now that it's coming to the end. Not only did that happen, but that happened through more than one superintendent, many different boards of education, many different committee members, some of whom were appointed when that bond issue was first put in front of the public. And throughout all of those years, I believe that promise was kept to the community. And what I see happening now is a very similar process, whereby the kitchen sink isn't being thrown in, but just that which is required of the students we're going to serve. And as Jim said earlier tonight, we always have to be at 85%, or we wouldn't be able to use the financing that we're using. And another thing he said, hope you don't mind, Jim, is that in a real way, if we're maintaining property that we're not using, we're taking from the kids. We're taking from the students. This is something that we should be running to the efficiency and not shirking it, and I see that that's what we're doing, and so I'm very pleased with that process. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Cox. Ms. Hines?
I agree with my other colleagues against Senate Bill 584. I carry a gun. I used to be a former law enforcement officer. My husband was a law enforcement officer, but guns should not be in school. You know, that's dangerous. Our job as school board members is to make sure your kids are protected and they're safe. So I agree with my fellow board members on that. One other thing I would like to thank, I really love this year with the culture climate change, because it's, you know, helping me think in a different way, because a lot of times with these children, a lot of them talk about the behavior issues, but a lot of it is these children need love. You know, when you have high poverty, you have both the parents working, nobody's at home, nobody's paying attention to the kids, you have these cell phones, you know. A lot of times we need more people in the community. When I was growing up, our neighbors, you know, they helped us out. Everybody was one community. You know, you had a lot of people help mentor, like if someone needed help, you know, they didn't mind helping Miss Sally down the street with their children. It takes a village to raise a child. There's one program that I noticed Ms. Holt has really been helping in the community, is to get the community members more involved in the schools, like sponsoring. And I seen something Sunday that just impressed me. I'd like to give a shout out to Pastor Humes over at New Hope. They had donated over 1,000 items to the kids at David Hicks. Even things as little as pillows and blankets. That is amazing. And then having mentors, just people, bodies, somebody coming to a child to say, hey, I care about you. That makes a big difference, because I'm going to be honest, I'm a single mom. My husband, he passed. And my son, he doesn't have anybody. So just having somebody to say, hey, you know what, I care about you, that makes a big difference in these children's lives. So I really give a shout out to you, Dr. Holt, and all the community members and the faculty and staff to take the extra time for our children, because they do need the love, and that would help some of the behavior problems. So I'm really excited about this new climate, culture, and change, because it's having me think in a whole nother way about education. And there's one more thing too, because I'm excited. My son's going to 9th grade, so I'm like other parents, like if there's different programs to help the students out, they're doing the dual enrollments over at Schoolcraft College. So I think it's something that's awesome. I make sure I get this information out where kids can get those credits, you know, graduate from high school with extra college credits, and that saves parents lots of money. So I know they're going to have a middle school college night. It's going to be Tuesday, March the 6th, 2018, from 4:30 to 7:30. And it's going to be hosted at the Vista Takeover at Schoolcraft. And I'll make sure this stuff gets out, because this stuff is very important. I'll be totally honest, if it wasn't for Upward Bound and going to college, I wouldn't be where I am. I'm totally honest. So these type of programs are really important to children. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Ms. Hines. Mrs. Medell?
Thank you. When we were talking about the purchase of buses, something came to me that I am very hopeful that Wayne County RESA will release monies again this year. They have in the last 2 years out of their Act 18 fund, which you know has got quite a nice nest egg sitting there. And they have been able to release funds to us to purchase buses for special ed kids. So I'm hoping that they will come at us again with a nice check so that we can provide newer special ed transportation for our little guys. Last Friday, I was supposed to be in Lansing for an MASB conference, and I erred on the side of caution and stayed home. So I'm going to owe the district some money because I did not attend, and I understand it went forward without me. Go figure. But I'm glad I did stay home after watching my neighbor get stuck in his driveway after coming home from work in the evening, and it sat there for 2 days until they could dig it out. So I'm glad it wasn't me and that I did stay home. Especially, I don't usually drive an SUV or a pickup truck or anything big like that. I've got a smaller car, and I was a little leery about the way the storm tracked. So it was my choice, and I will reimburse the school district for that. Some of the information that was shared today in the choice work presentation, as it goes out into the community, I'm noticing that people are jumping on it and reacting that this is a foregone conclusion. I sat through a meeting where somebody said, well, the school board's already made up their mind. I have to remind people at home, decisions are made here at the board table in public. There are no decisions that we make as a board behind closed doors. Everything is done in public. So if you get on YouTube and you don't see us voting on a particular issue, then we didn't vote on it. Sometimes change is scary, and I said this last month. Change is just change. Sometimes good, sometimes bad. But it's change, and we need to constantly move forward. There's a process that we're working on here. This is part of the process. There are so many other moving parts to this that we haven't even gotten to that point of making any decisions. But going forward, when we are ready to make those decisions, we will notify everybody that this is happening so that they can be part of the input before the decision is made, so they can be part of the process and see which direction we are going in for the future and why we're looking at that direction. We do have to make some changes. You see our attendance, our numbers of our students, that's changing. Our demographic is changing. Everything is changing. But it's always been that way. We just have to keep up with it so that we aren't caught in a situation where it's going to cost us more money because we weren't aware. We weren't looking forward. We're also going to make sure that we look at that ripple effect when we do make a decision. We're not making a decision for here and now. We're making a decision that might affect us 5 years from now. Is this a good choice for our kids? Is this a good choice for our residents? Is this a good choice for our employees? It's all that ripple effect that occurs when you make a decision. So we are going to take our time. We're going to make sure that we have as much information at our fingertips as we possibly can. We ask the good questions. We listen to everybody's input because it's going to affect everybody going forward. So please, just bear with us. Don't panic. Don't write on Facebook, they're closing my kid's school. I'm sorry, did you see that in a public forum? It didn't happen. It's not happening right now. No, you can still pack a lunch for your kid tomorrow. I think it was a wise decision, Superintendent Holt, for canceling school today. Mr. Buckaloo and I went to coffee with the legislators today. It was a little iffy. Some of the roads, if they are major roads like Wayne Road, Michigan Avenue, they're in pretty good condition. Secondary roads, little iffy. Lily Road out by me, Haggerty, little crazy, little slick, still covered with snow, maybe down to just one lane. Side streets in neighborhoods, maybe the plow went down that road, maybe it didn't, but unfortunately, the neighbors, it didn't go wide enough, so the neighbors can't pull close enough to the curb, so they're now sticking out. And I'm looking down a couple of those as I'm driving by going, yeah, I don't see a bus going down that road at all. Or they're gonna have to play dodge 'em cars with the people as they're parked on the street. So it was a good decision. Hopefully, people have gotten out there. I also noticed there were a lot of sidewalks that weren't shoveled. And I realize some of us older citizens aren't that great with the shovel or the snow blower. I get that. But the point is that those of our kids who do walk to school, little kids will run through it, not a problem. A little bit older, they'll trudge through it. Older kids will walk in the street, and that's dangerous for our kids. And you've got to be careful out there, people, and watch out for our babies. They're all our babies. I don't care whether they're a preschooler or they're a high schooler. We don't want anybody slip and fall, hit by a car, run over, whatever, especially by a bus. So please, if you need help shoveling, there are organizations you can call and ask for help to shovel your walk. But let's take care of our kids, please. Let's err on the side of caution when it comes to some of this stuff. And please be kind to our bus drivers. They've got a hard road to haul out there in the snow. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Madell. As usual, by the time it gets to me, everything has been said, but I do want to acknowledge again the pledged children, Addison and Josh Say. And then I also want to talk about Angelique Wilson and Connor Wilson. They were supposed to be here this evening too, but they went over to City Council by accident. So, but we'll make sure that they get their certificates from us. Ms. Madell kind of hit on what I was going to say, but my thing was there's some pretty big snow piles out, so just kind of watch when you go around, because to be aware of the kids as they cross the street, or even adults, because some of, like at the end of the subs, and places on corners, there's some very large snow piles, and you have to kind of pull out to see them, so take your time going around them. As always, I thank each and every one of you for taking time out your evening to come and sit and listen to us as we go through our business. We really appreciate you taking your time to come out, and we hope to see you all again next month. At this time, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Cox. Supported by Ms. Hines. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Have a good night, everyone.